Join us for lively discussion about the A-State community. Each week, we'll meet with a variety of faculty, staff, and students to discuss all things Arkansas State University. Live from the ASU-TV studios in the School of Media and Journalism, this is A-State Connections.
Hello everyone, welcome to A-State Connections on ASU-TV. I'm Tanja McKay, a sports media student here at Arkansas State University. Dr. Tanja McKay is the Department Chair for Biological Sciences and Professor of Entomology here at Arkansas State University. Dr. McKay is very versed in many aspects of entomology, from general to aquatic to veterinary. She's here today to talk more about her department, her courses, and her projects. Dr. McKay, welcome to A-State Connections.
Thank you so much for having me, Julia.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. Entomology seems so interesting. Like I told you before, I had never really looked into it prior to this, and then doing some of the research, there's so many different aspects of it. I didn't realize what all was out there.
Entomology is a very large field, and it's an exciting field to be in. You can be an entomologist that is a veterinary entomologist, a forest entomologist, a field crop biologist. You can actually work in the military under looking at disease issues associated with many of these insects, including mosquitoes. So it's a really exciting field to be in.
I'm just so intrigued by it. You mentioned mosquitoes. You did this project called the Citizen Science Mosquito Project. Can you tell us what that is?
This is a project that there's many different things in citizen science where we get the citizens of any community, and here it was Jonesboro, involved in science, and specifically entomology, and doing mosquito trapping, and to look to see where mosquitoes are in the community.
Yes, so we talked a little bit about the behavior and the environments of mosquitoes. Can you tell us more about them and their habitat, specifically Jonesboro area?
So mosquitoes are found worldwide, including in many different communities. And here in Jonesboro, as we know, mosquitoes are quite abundant. Mosquitoes are aquatic in their immature stages. So they lay eggs in water. And sometimes it could be a small little bottle cap of water, and that's sufficient for a small larva to actually develop and become an adult. Wow. So they can be in ditches, they can be in tree holes, they can be in our backyards. Say, for example, a swimming pool that hasn't been looked after, then mosquitoes can actually develop in that kind of stagnant water. The females are the ones that do the blood feeding, and actually the ones that are biting us, and are the ones that are disease-oriented because of the biting. Males actually feed on flowers. They're nectar feeders, so they don't actually bite people. It's the females that do. So they're really interesting. They can actually be quite beautiful under a microscope, and there are many different species. And we're talking hundreds of different species.
See, like I said, it's so intriguing because I never thought about that. I just knew, oh, that's a mosquito in the air. And like sometimes when they're flying by my head, I can kind of hear them, especially
definitely.
In the summer, like 4th of July time, when it's dark outside and we're shooting fireworks, I'm like swatting them away.
Very much. We do have an issue in Jonesboro, but it is something we have to deal with mosquitoes. It's in every community.
So in this project, it talks about the community and surveilling the mosquitoes. So can you tell us how that works and how does that happen?
So this is a project that we started about 3 years ago in kind of developing. We contacted the city of Jonesboro, and we had this idea. The idea was, why don't we get citizens of Jonesboro together in doing something that we always do as scientists? We actually put out traps in order to figure out where mosquitoes are and where we need to actually do some mitigation, meaning that where do we need to do some control aspects within the city. Traps are usually placed around. And so why not get the citizens involved in knowing exactly some of the science associated with it? So we contacted the mayor, and they gave us some funding and we started the project. We had students together to come in, set up traps, get people involved, the community. Sent out emails, we had a publication, we told K8 News, hey, let's get these people involved. And the citizens of Jonesboro really came to us and said, yes, we want to be part of that. And that's how it actually became a project for the university and the city.
Wow, I love the networking aspect of it. It wasn't just y'all, it wasn't just the community, but it was the news and everybody was getting involved
Yes.
for this one sole project.
Yes, it was very exciting. It was really nice to see the support from the city as well as from the Jonesboro community as well.
So now, like you said, the step by step of how the project went. Now, citizens were out there catching these mosquitoes. Now that you have that data, what did you do with it?
So what we did during the time, so we did this the summer of 2024. It ran from May all the way to August. And we also had some funding left over from that particular time where we actually did a smaller version of that this past summer. So we had students go to the actual family member, to the actual community member who was interested in setting up a trap in their backyard. During that night, we collected mosquitoes, worked with the actual community member to actually show them how to trap, brought that data back and those mosquitoes, and then told them exactly what their count, what mosquito species they had, and then we actually used that to tell Vector Disease Control, which is our mosquito disease, the mosquito company that actually does some mitigation and control, and we gave them that data.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So we talked a little bit a second ago about how we have a bunch of mosquitoes here in Jonesboro. What makes Jonesboro that breeding ground for mosquitoes? Is it rice land? Is it the farmland? Like what is it?
So we are here in the south in Arkansas. You know, it's a humid environment. We do have rice fields. We have a lot of ditches and a lot of different wooded areas. Mosquitoes can breed in the smallest amount of water. And especially during the time with the rice fields, when they do flood, mosquitoes do move in, and they can move maybe about a mile in distance, or even more. If there's a nice wind blowing in the direction of the wind, mosquitoes can move in those directions. So Jonesboro, it's very similar to other places. I'm from Canada, and in Canada, mosquitoes are very prevalent as well. So anytime you have any type of water, you can have mosquitoes breeding, and so Jonesboro is just a perfect place for mosquitoes to be very abundant.
So with the mosquito population here in Jonesboro, I know we talked a little bit about the health concerns that mosquitoes carry. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So mosquitoes, because of the female, they need to have a blood meal in order to lay more eggs, in order to continue that life cycle. So they will be looking for humans, mammals, our dogs and cats, anything to actually acquire that blood meal. And within that, when they are actually feeding, they can be transmitting many different diseases. Some diseases that are important, West Nile, you might have heard, that's a virus that could be very detrimental to us as humans, as well as horses on the veterinary side. But there's a gamut of other different diseases. Another one that's really important here in Jonesboro area in the Mississippi Delta is heartworm. So if you have a family pet, a dog, for example, that can come down with heartworm very quickly, it is a disease that is in our mosquito populations. It's very abundant here in the Mississippi Delta.
So with the behaviors of the mosquitoes and with this project, overall, what were your findings of the mosquitoes, and do you think that this project was successful? You've done it twice. Do you think in the future you're going to do it again?
Yeah, so it was a very successful project. The community members of Jonesboro really came together. When we announced this, we actually asked the community. We put out an email and put it out to the public, and within an hour, we had over 300 families from Jonesboro actually signing up. Wow. It came to the point where we had to shut it down because we were only limited. I had four students actually working on the project, and the idea of how many times can we go out in a summer to actually collect mosquitoes. So it was very successful. During that time, we actually found over 80,000 to 90,000 mosquitoes with the first summer. An average number of mosquitoes in a trap was between 100 to 400 in an evening. And so it was successful in that because we took that data and told Vector Disease where the abundance of these mosquitoes were actually located. And so I hope that we can actually continue this. This past summer, we had a smaller group of students actually going to different places in Jonesboro. That project ended in August. I hope that we will get continued funding. We're working on other grants in order to continue doing something similar. We're looking at the National Science Foundation and getting a larger grant. And so hopefully we can get this another project going very soon. Just depends if we get that grant.
I find this so exciting for your students. One thing that we talk about a lot here on A-State Connections is the connection side of our show, how these students are out there getting involved, not just with their major or their professors, but with the community as well. And I think this project is a great example of that. I think it brought the community together, students, professors, families, news, the city. I love it.
Yeah, the connections was fantastic. Like if we think about the students were getting expertise in actually identifying mosquitoes, being able to identify a mosquito from one species to the next, actually having that educational component to describing the importance of mosquitoes to actually community members on how to make sure that you are cleaning up in your backyards to prevent mosquitoes. Because even though mosquitoes are in the rice fields, they are here in Jonesboro breeding. You know, if we have tires, you know, put those tires away. Make sure there's no standing water that you are contributing to in your backyard, that you might be the problem of breeding mosquitoes in your own backyard. So educating the public is also a very good component of that, and our students were actually very involved with that. So it's exciting to see those connections.
See, I love that. I love the aspect of the students going out there, getting the information and bringing it back and having that relay of information.
Yeah.
Like, this is what we did, this is what we found, and here's how to either continue it or to make it better.
Right, exactly. And to allow that connection of that family that they were contributing to science. So, you know, as a community, all different things that you might hear in the news, science is a really important part of understanding a problem. And, you know, if we have mosquitoes, diseases, maybe we can, just in our own backyards, kind of mitigate some of these things and problems. And so education is a very, very important component to that. So.
Yes. Education is so important, and Dr. McKay with this project showed the community aspect of it and how students could get involved. Department Chair for Biological Sciences and Professor of Entomology, Dr. McKay, joins me on A-State Connections. We'll be right back with more A-State Connections right after this.
Students should watch ASU-TV just to see the creativity that a college student can get. The creativity that some of these students have is truly amazing. Getting that experience can really just take you further, and I feel like our program does that for a lot of students.
I think one of the things I learned at Arkansas State was life is 10% of what happens to you, 90% of how you respond to it, and that's just something that I live by.
A-State is home, and they're going to treat you like you're a part of the family.
Red Wolf Radio is a student-led organization at Arkansas State University wanting to hear your takes on pop culture, music, the news, and college life. Just about anything you can think of. Located in the Education and Communications building on campus, we are always looking for more volunteers. So if you're an Arkansas State University student, no matter the major, and this is something that interests you, shoot us an email at redwolfradio@astate.edu. That's redwolfradio@astate.edu. Let them hear you how.
Live from the ASU-TV studios in the School of Media and Journalism, this is A-State Connections.
Welcome back to A-State Connections on ASU-TV. I'm Julia McKee. We are continuing our conversation with the Department Chair of Biological Sciences and Professor of Entomology, Dr. McKay. Dr. McKay, thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It's really nice being here.
So when I was doing my research for this show, I was so intrigued by this project. When we started rolling, I completely just started rolling about the project, and I didn't even ask about you, about your education pathway. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in entomology? And
Sure.
You've got a couple degrees, so I want to hear about them.
So I am originally from Nova Scotia in Canada. And I started a long time ago with an undergraduate in zoology. And so my first trajectory in becoming who I wanted to become a medical doctor, if you believe that. Things changed. And so there was a professor at Acadia University. She was teaching entomology, and I thought, wow, this could be a career. Like, I didn't even know that this could be a career. And so I looked into it. I did my honors project, a small project on damselflies.
Oh, okay.
From there, I moved on and did a master's in houseflies, little parasitic wasps that parasitize houseflies in dairies. So the idea of using another insect to decrease another insect, houseflies, in a dairy. Got my master's at University of Manitoba, and then came to the United States in 1998 to start a PhD at Kansas State University. And there I looked again, trying to decrease housefly populations, again specializing in this nice little parasitic wasp, to use another insect to decrease populations, and then came to Arkansas.
Wow. Coming from Canada to Kansas to Arkansas, is it a little bit colder up there?
It is. It's much colder in the winter times, but where I'm from in the east, it's a pretty. The winters aren't too harsh, but it is a lot cooler. It is much warmer here in Arkansas than up in Canada.
So entomology, it's so intriguing. That's just the word that comes to my mind because I think there's so much to it. So you said your professor really sparked your interest in entomology,
Yes,
and then your houseflies, and then later on you ended up coming to Arkansas and you worked at University of Arkansas. Can you tell us about how that transition was, coming from Canada to Kansas to here, and well, to Fayetteville, and then to here? Your research kind of traveled with you.
My research has changed over the years, and it just depends on where I was, the funding opportunities. In Kansas, my funding was from the university, whereas I was a teaching assistant. And so in that case, I was able to kind of look at general biology of this parasitic wasp. It wasn't grant funded, so it was more basic biology and science. But then when I moved to the University of Arkansas, I was a postdoc. And there we had a grant where we were working with turkeys and broiler breeder facilities, looking at houseflies, and houseflies carry all kinds of other diseases. They carry E. coli. Campylobacter is another bacterium that, if you've ever had an upset stomach after eating a hamburger, that might be what you have had. And so flies can carry these things. So we were looking at that. So my projects have changed over the years. When I came here as a professor in 2004, there were no chicken houses here. There were no cattle production. I had to kind of change direction. And that's when I became interested in stored product insects, in rice milling, and just started projects and had collaborations with other researchers here in the United States. So I totally moved away from veterinary entomology into the stored product entomology. But during also that time, mosquitoes also were very prevalent here in Jonesboro, so I moved into mosquito research, and especially heartworm.
Like you said, long way from thinking you were going to be a doctor.
Very much. I never thought of entomology being a career, but I always, as a child, enjoyed being, I always had that curiosity, like putting bumblebees in a mason jar or fireflies and watching those interactions. So, but it was really interesting to me as I went into my undergrad to realize that there are other careers that I never even thought of that I could actually really enjoy. And so entomology is one of those fields that is very important. You know, you can be an entomologist in a variety of different fields. So you could be an expert in medical entomology, dealing with mosquitoes, cockroaches, houseflies, lice, fleas. Or you could be a forest entomologist, where you could be concentrating on an insect that attacks those pine trees in your backyard. So that's a very different discipline. So, or a field crop biologist, stink bugs in cotton, or plant bugs in cotton. Very different. Not my expertise. So you can see, insects are so prevalent worldwide. lots of different biologies. You can't be an expert in all. So that's why it's such a really interesting discipline to be in.
I remember as a kid, I live out in the county with one street light on my street, and I remember going out in the back and just seeing all the fireflies, and I remember I was just speechless. I just had to sit there and watch them.
I have to say that's one thing that I do enjoy in the summertime here in Arkansas. In my backyard, the fireflies, just in the evenings and it's actually a treat to watch. And, you know, I do worry about where we are going with more insecticide use and decreasing some of these really important fireflies aren't really they're not an insect that's causing any issues. They're important in the ecosystem. So we do have mosquito issues where we want to continue decreasing those populations, but conserving our pollinators, our beneficials is also very important.
Yes, I never realized how important insects were to how we live our everyday life. You know, especially here with the farmland and the rice land with our food production and stuff like that. And I just remember getting bit by a mosquito as a kid and not thinking anything about it. I was just like, oh, okay, and went on about my day.
Yeah. Well, insects are everywhere. You know, I bet if you go out today, this afternoon, just walk around, even though the temperatures are decreasing, I bet you will see an insect. And so they're everywhere. They're, in our backyards, in our crop systems. And in some of those, we really focus in on those insects that are causing damage. Here in Arkansas, if you think about the ones that are causing issues in humans, in our agricultural systems, diseases, there are only about 3,000 species. Whereas they're likely estimated, it depends on who you read in the literature, maybe 80 million different species out there that have some mostly yet to be described. And so you can see 3,000 versus that of the most, the majority. We really focus on those ones that are detrimental, but we also should focus on those that are actually beneficial and not doing anything, but yet being beautiful out there.
Just observing.
Exactly.
Yes, ma'am. What kind of made you pivot? So you studied zoology and then entomology, and then you went to University of Arkansas, worked for a little bit, and then came here as a professor. What shifted that pivot from the study to the professor side of things?
Well, when I first arrived, here in Jonesboro, I became an assistant professor. And so during my postdoc, I did not teach. It was strictly research. But coming here, I then started teaching general entomology, aquatic entomology, medical veterinary entomology. These are all insect taxonomy. These are classes that we have in our curriculum here at Arkansas State. And I really enjoy the teaching aspect. So that was a pivot from the research postdoc. But I did teach at Kansas State. I was a TA, a teaching assistant. So I did teach economic entomology for those students. But teaching, I think, is something that I do enjoy. And giving that back to students to teach you all of the importance of entomology and how it can also be a good career.
I love how you have the professor side of things, the department chair, but you're also still hands-on with your projects. Like I said, that community aspect. So you still get that little research itch, as you would say.
Yes, it just depends on the funding. So funding as a professor, as you go through, we actually look for grants, and that is sometimes quite challenging. But what is really important, what I've learned over the years, and being successful in some grants, is collaboration. Getting many people from different expertise and fields coming together to write a grant together. And that's where funding agencies really, really look at that as a key part. If you can get many different disciplines into a project, it's a better outcome. And so that's some of the things that I've learned over the years in the stored product entomology, working with rice milling, worked with many different scientists from all across the United States to come together with projects, and that's a really kind of a benefit. Collaboration is important.
Yes, ma'am. For those students interested in contributing to the projects or learning more about entomology, Dr. McKay has a website, and it is located on the AState website. Just look up Dr. McKay, and it will pop up. But that will do it for this edition of A-State Connections. To keep up with A-State athletics from my point of view, make sure to follow at the McKee Media on Instagram. I want to thank my guest, Dr. McKay, again for joining us today. I also want to say a huge thank you to the instructor of creative media production, Galen Perkins, and his amazing students in Video Production 1, who are behind the scenes running this show today. I could not host this show without them. Special thanks to our producer today, Mr. Jonathan Reeves, and to our broadcast engineer, Timmy Arquette, Aiden Barber, and graduate assistant, Reese Barnett, for their help on this show. Until next time, and as always, go Red Wolves.